Hello, welcome to our Grow Solar St. Louis Solar Power Hour in conjunction with the Green Living Festival. Welcome. We're gonna let people roll on in and get situated, and we'll start in a few minutes. Hi everyone, welcome to the folks that have just arrived. You're here at the Grow Solar St. Louis Solar Power Hour. We're here at the Green Living Festival today. I'm just going to give a few more moments to let people arrive before we begin. Welcome again to everyone that just joined us. We're just giving it one more moment and we'll get started in about a minute. We'll just let a few more people arrive. But you're here at the Grow Solar St. Louis Solar Power Hour. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're excited to share a lot of information with you today. So we'll get started shortly. All right, we're a few minutes past the top of the hour, so how about we get started? First, I'm gonna pass it over to Kat Golden to kind of introduce us and kick off the presentation and tell us about the Green Living Festival.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our special Power Hours, part of the Earthway Center Green Living Festival from the Missouri Botanical Garden. I'm so excited to be here for our virtual festival, first of its kind, with the Grow Solar St. Louis team to help kind of share information about the program and a great way to learn about solar energy and how you can invest in solar for your own home. So you'll be learning a lot from Jen and Eric, who are our main presenters today. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's participating in our Green Living Festival, the fabulous festival exhibitors, the wonderful sponsors. So thank you to Ameren Missouri as our presenting sponsor for supporting and energizing the Green Living Festival so that we can bring sustainable solutions that everybody can learn from and try and use in their own life. And I also want to say a special thank you to our workshop sponsor, Spire. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Marta to kind of introduce some of the features in Zoom that we'll be using in today's Power Hour, and then we'll get started with some great information.
Thanks, Kat. Yeah, I'm sorry to introduce myself before. My name is Marta. I'm with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. And as I said, you're here at the Grow Solar Power Hour, and we're very happy to be here at the Green Living Festival and sharing our information with you and telling you all about the program. Before we dive into the presentation itself, I want to go over just some basic information on how to interact with our presentation and Zoom, just to kind of get you oriented. So first off, the chat function. This is going to be important. We're going to be dropping a lot of information into the chat that complements the information that we're talking about. So if you don't know how to get there, or if you haven't gotten there yet, hover over the toolbar at the bottom of your screen with your mouse and click on chat. And a toolbar will pop up on your screen. So as I said, we're going to be dropping some additional information and links into the chat. If you miss it though, don't worry. Because you registered with us, we'll be able to email you all of this information again after the webinar is over. And like Kat said, if you have any questions as we go through the presentation, drop them in the chat, because we've got a whole team on our end ready to answer those questions for you. And then when the presentation is over, we're going to revisit those questions again, kind of go into a little more detail and give you another chance to ask any more questions that have continued to pop up. So we'll answer all those questions until they're exhausted for everyone. And another important thing that I want to draw your attention to is that I'm going to be dropping a link in the chat with a sign-up form for a free site assessment that's part of the program. That's also going to be in your inbox, but if you're chomping at the bit and ready to go, the link will be there for you shortly to get started. And finally, a helpful feature on Zoom is the choice between gallery view or speaker view, which you can access by clicking the down arrow at the top right portion of your screen and toggling between the two options. I recommend speaker view so you aren't distracted by all of our faces. You'll notice that you can see us, but we can't see you. But that way with speaker view, you can just see the one person who's talking. And you can also adjust the size of the screen by sliding the slider separator that's there that you can find with your mouse. So those are all the big things. Again, drop your questions into the chat and we'll answer them in real time. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jen and our Grow Solar St. Louis team, and she's going to tell you all about the program.
Thank you, Marta, and hello, everyone. Welcome, Green Living Festival attendees. Welcome to our virtual Grow Solar St. Louis Power Hour. Again, I'm Jen. I'm here representing the Missouri Botanical Gardens Earthway Center. I'll be joined tonight by Eric from Straight Up Solar, and you've already met Manta and Kat. We're going to cover a lot of information about solar in this group buy program. Again, drop your questions in the chat. We have like a crack team of experts that'll be able to answer them as you have them. I also really look forward to the Q&A at the end. That's kind of the best part, so stick around for that. Grow Solar St. Louis is a group buy residential solar program for St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County homeowners and small commercial property owners. We have a similar program going on in the Metro East, but this presentation is really meant for residents of St. Louis City, County, and St. Charles County. I'd like to start off by thanking our promotional partners in Clayton, the City of St. Louis, Brentwood, Creve Coeur, Richmond Heights, and University City. Again, these we want to give a special shout out to these municipalities, but everyone in St. Louis City, County, and St. Charles County are eligible for this program. And this is our second year of doing this in the St. Louis region, by the way. So Grow Solar St. Louis is brought to you by the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, Washington University in St. Louis, and the Missouri Botanical Garden. The Midwest Renewable Energy Association is an educational organization founded in 1990 in Wisconsin. They promote renewable energy, energy efficiency, and sustainable living through education and demonstration. The MREA offers courses in solar, solar thermal, and small wind. And y'all are probably familiar, hopefully, with the Missouri Botanical Garden Sustainability Division, the Earthway Center, which enriches lives and protects plants and our environment by educating and connecting people to practical, sustainable solutions where they live, learn, work, and play. Earthway Center is a great organization that coordinates multiple programs to advance sustainability in the region. Do check them out if this is your first time experiencing them and their programs. So I know I like to know what I'm getting into before starting a presentation. So here's a quick snapshot of what to expect. We're going to learn a little bit about what Grow Solar St. Louis is, how solar power works, like the science of solar, costs and incentives, and what practical steps you'll have to take to begin your personal solar journey. Let's start by talking a little bit about what a group buy program is. So Grow Solar is a group buy program whereby working together, we create an economy of scale, and that helps lower the price for everyone. The higher the participation, the higher the rebate for the group buy. Our deadline to sign up is August 31st. So the deadline is a very important part of the program because it helps to force some decisions along the way. So we organize power hours like this one to help educate the public and take some of the legwork for the solar installers away, which saves them time and resources, and that's what helps lower the cost. The more people who attend our power hours virtually, the more people who sign up, and the more affordable solar is for everyone. So make sure you tell your friends about these presentations. We have a whole list of them available on our website. So this is our second year of Grow Solar in St. Louis, as I mentioned before. Thanks to the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, these sessions happen all over and have been responsible for over 1,600 solar installations across the Midwest. This slide shows the results from last year's program in St. Louis. In 2019, our program helped 71 homes in our region go solar, saving an average of $724 per year per customer in utilities. The program kept the environmental equivalent of 407,518 pounds of coal emissions from entering our atmosphere. Now we hope to continue that trend in 2020, making solar more affordable and available for everyone in the St. Louis region. I love that slide. So let's talk a little bit about the science of solar, or how solar works. So right now you're looking at a map that shows the distribution of sunlight across the United States. It's called an irradiance map. So looking at the solar irradiance map, the areas in red receive the most amount of sunlight. Yellow receives less, with green, blue, and purple receiving the least amount of sunlight in a year. Now, a question we get a lot about solar in St. Louis is if we even have enough sunlight in Missouri to make solar power viable. Like the last 2 days have been kind of spotty and rainy, you know? The good news is that overall, the US has plenty of sunlight. In St. Louis, we have nearly as much sunshine as Miami, Florida, making us a great candidate for solar power. Now, you'll notice in the lower right-hand corner a small inset map of Germany, and you can tell by the gloomy purples and blues that they receive much less sunlight than the United States. Yet they've led the world in the number of solar installations, with the goal to generate 50% of their power by solar by 2030. And they're well on their way to achieving that goal. So obviously, the amount of sun you get is dependent on a whole lot of factors, like shade and available spots to put panels. But the good news is that we get plenty of light. Also, all potential installs receive a free proper site assessment to determine if solar is right for you in your unique situation. So unfortunately, we have to talk a little bit about terminology and learn the difference between a kilowatt and a kilowatt hour. But don't worry, this should be relatively quick and painless. So a kilowatt measures power capacity. In other words, it's a measurement of the most energy your system can produce in any instant. For example, a 5 kilowatt solar array means 5 kilowatts per instant is able to be generated. It's also a way to describe the rating or the size of your system. Like, so for example, you might get a 5.6 kilowatt array for your home. That's how you tell your friends about how cool your solar array is. Now, a kilowatt hour is power used over time, or units of energy that are used or produced. And that's what'll show up on your bill. So it's important to know the difference between these two things before we proceed. If you got questions about that, please drop them in the chat. Okay, so here's a basic background on how solar power works. So photons from the sun hit the solar array, which is another name for the collection of panels or modules. In this illustration, it's at the top of the roof, but you can also put it in your garage or in your backyard. The electrons in the solar panels then get really excited, and that creates direct current or DC electricity, which is great, but your house probably doesn't run on DC electricity. It runs on AC or alternating current electricity. So that's why we need component number 3 in the solar array, which is the inverter. An inverter converts the direct current to alternating current or AC electricity, which can be then used in your home. Now there are 3 main kinds of inverters. There's string inverters, microinverters, and power optimizers. When you talk about your project with a site developer, they can help you determine which inverter is right for your home. We're not going to spend too much time talking about inverters during this presentation, but we can spend some time at the end if you have more questions about that. Now, the energy you produce goes through an electric meter, and this is a different meter than the one you've already got on your house. It measures how much energy your panels are producing, including how much energy you're sending back to your utility when you're using less energy than you're creating. This whole process is called net metering, and we'll go into that in some detail here in a moment. Now, extra energy not used by your home is sent back to the grid. Cool thing about solar modules is they have no moving parts, which means there's very little to break. They're pretty sturdy. Generally, solar panels come with a 25-year warranty. And while the efficiency rating will slowly decrease over the years, many solar panels are still effectively producing electricity well past 30 years of age. So people often connect the concept of solar to the concept of going off grid and using battery backups. Now, folks can choose their own paths when it comes to solar. And if it's an off-grid system you want, we can totally make that work. However, this presentation assumes everybody's getting a grid interactive system. And there are a few reasons for this. In a grid-tied design, your solar system provides you, oh no, hold on just a second, I'm so sorry. In a grid-tied design, your solar system provides power to your home, and then any excess electricity generated beyond that energy use is delivered back to the utility grid. If your solar system is not producing enough energy to meet those needs, like for example, at night or if it's raining, then you use electricity from the utility or from the grid. Grid-tied systems are the least expensive type of solar system designs as well, and they allow for net metering, which again is how you make your money back from Ameren when they buy back the extra energy you create from your solar array, which appears as a credit on your electric bill. Now, for safety reasons, if the utility grid goes down, your solar array also shuts down. And this is done to prevent injury for those that might be working on a line. Say if there's a power outage from a storm and there's a worker who's up on a ladder repairing a line and the sun comes out and you're sending power back to the grid, it could really hurt them. So that's why if the grid's off, your solar system is also off. Let's spend a little time talking about net metering. So again, this means that any extra electricity produced by your solar system is exported to the utility grid and then subtracted from the amount of electricity you import from the grid, reducing your overall electricity costs. So how does this work? The utility reconciles net access generation every billing period, so monthly. The customer receives credit on their next bill at the retail utility energy rate. So it works sort of like rollover minutes do on your phone. Here's a graph that shows how you would use and produce your energy over the course of a day. If you're producing more than you're using, you'd get a credit every month with your bill. Generally, you want the total area of the yellow curve when your solar array is producing energy to be equal to the total area of the blue curve, which is when you're using electricity from the utility. Now, net metering applies when the yellow areas are greater than the blue areas. This chart shows annual energy use versus projected solar use for 1 year in the average home in our area. Some months your solar array will generate more energy than you use, and other months you'll be using the grid plus your solar array for energy consumption. Yellow is anticipated solar for our area, where the blue is typical energy use for 1 year. In this example, this home's solar array produced 73% of the yearly average consumption of the household. So that's pretty good. So this is a bill from an actual real Ameren customer. In this example, the customer consumed 354 kilowatt hours of electricity, but generated 462 kilowatt hours. They still have a bill, but no charges, but the charges are for service fees. There's no charge for energy used. Again, this difference in what is sent back to the grid is called net metering. So solar plus storage is another name for solar with batteries. In this scenario, you take that excess electricity production and store it on site instead of exporting it to the grid. Now, this can be advantageous if your utility charges you different rates depending on the time of day you use energy or your peak demand, or if the access generation from your solar array is credited at wholesale rather than retail in utility's net metering policy. If you have questions about that, please drop it in the chat. I'd like to talk a little bit about some practical considerations now when you're talking about your personal site and your unique situation. When Straight Up Solar does their free site assessment, they take these things into consideration to determine the system cost, size, and design. These considerations are often called adders in the industry, but that doesn't mean they're fancy extras. They're often necessary to get your panels safely and properly installed on your property. A few points to highlight. I don't know if I'd mentioned this before, but Straight Up Solar was the contractor who won our bid. They're wonderful. They're a reputable installer, and they're not going to put panels on your roof if your roof is going to cave in because it's too old or not structurally sound. Also, panels should go where you get the most light, which is also known as a solar window. Now, this background image behind the text shows what an example of a solar window looks like. The yellow areas on each home is where each home receives the most sun and would ideally be where the solar panels would go. Remember, the panels don't have to go on your roof. They can go on your yard or even your garage. Another point I'd like to highlight here is while south facing is ideal, east and west facing panels only reduce production by around 20%. So even if you don't have an ideal situation, it's still worth considering getting solar from your home. So we talked a little bit about the science of solar and the practical considerations. Let's talk a little bit about why one might consider getting solar for their home or small business. So for me, I'm pretty passionate about the environment. So environmental equivalencies really matter. Going solar is like taking 1.5 cars off the road or reducing the emissions of 7,532 pounds of coal, which is the weight of an adult rhinoceros. So to me, that's pretty compelling, but it's really not the only reason one might consider going solar. The first thing people think about with solar is the environment, but what about jobs in the local economy? Supporting jobs in our area has arguably never been more important than it is right now. As of 2019, the National Solar Job Census found that the solar workforce added more than 5,600 jobs nationwide from 2018 to 2019. American solar jobs have increased 167% over the past decade, adding 156,000 jobs. We're seeing this growth in residential, commercial, and utility scale installations. And solar power now generates 1.6% of all electricity in the US, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's growing pretty rapidly. And I think that's in part due to programs like the one that we are doing right now. So another good reason to go solar is because it has benefits to your pocketbook. This chart demonstrates the difference in electric bills between a solar and non-solar home over a 25-year period. Now the red line shows what bills without solar look like, while the green line shows how you start saving over $900 in your very first year that solar is installed. Now, your bills will continue to grow at a much lower rate, even with solar, but that's because you'll still be using electricity from your utility, like when it's dark or raining, plus service fees will continue to rise. Over the span of 25 years, it's estimated that you'll save over $30,000 with solar. So another thing that people always ask us about is whether or not home values will decrease if they put solar on their roof. And that's a valid concern, but the research has shown that the opposite is actually true. As residential solar installations have continued to increase, the real estate market is beginning to recognize and understand the value of solar. A report from 2019 released from Zillow stated that homes with solar panels sell for 4.1% more than homes without solar panels. Now, this isn't to say you should buy solar and flip your home for a profit on the solar array, and every housing market is different. But the point is that there's value in solar to home buyers. Now, it's Energy Efficiency Day. It's the Green Living Festival. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about energy efficiency and why that's important to understand when you're talking about solar. Understanding your personal energy use is a really important step towards installing solar power. Energy costs can be significantly reduced by energy efficiency strategies. The cheapest kilowatt hour is one you don't use in the first place. Nearly 60% of all of the energy produced in the US is lost due to inefficiencies. Now, making energy and conservation choices in your home can save significant amounts of energy and money. Some of these strategies include things that are simple, like replacing light bulbs and using power strips. And some of them are a little bit more expensive, like replacing old appliances with new energy efficient models. But they're all really smart things that you can do right away to start saving money and reducing your carbon footprint. At a household level, energy efficiency measures have been shown to provide 3 times the financial value as investments in solar. So implementing good energy efficient measures is an upfront economic investment that can reduce your energy needs, which then reduces the size and cost of your solar system that you need for your home or small business. Now, If you've attended any of the other previous webinars today, you would know that Ameren has incentives available for energy conservation and efficiency. I encourage you to please take their money, especially if you're updating your HVAC system or getting a major appliance replaced. Now, this image in this slide demonstrates an energy leak in a home discovered by a home energy audit. This is wasted energy that could be prevented with some simple steps like weather stripping. Energy audits are a great use of money. They can reveal the many ways homeowners waste money without even realizing it. Other good news, Straight Up Solar will reimburse up to $150 to those who get an energy audit and sign a solar contract with them. Note that you must use Missouri Botanical Gardens Sustainable Living at Home approved contractors and sign a solar contract to get reimbursed. But the good news is that covers a good deal of the cost of that home energy audit. Now, you don't have to make energy efficiency improvements in order to get solar, but it's a pretty good idea. If you do plan on making energy efficiency improvements at any time in the future, just tell the solar reps and they can take that into account when sizing and pricing a proposal for you. And now I would like to hand the wheel over to my friend and colleague, Eric of Straight Up Solar, and he's going to talk to you about the costs, incentives, and a little more about beginning your solar journey.
Great. Thank you very much, Jen. It's a pleasure to be part of the first ever virtual Green Living Festival. I'm joined by project developer Matt Farwig, who's been busy typing away answers to the questions on the chat. Keep going, Matt. Keep throwing those questions to Matt. He's very knowledgeable on a variety of solar subjects. And again, just to pick up on the last slide, Jen mentioned today's the Energy Efficiency Day, the Green Living Festival. So please go to the Mobile Green Living Festival website. There's some great videos that were just put up, done today. They'll be put up either by the evening or tomorrow morning on those energy efficiency incentives that Ameren did and some examples of how you can have a net zero home. So I encourage you to check out this great virtual Green Living Festival, although I have to admit, I prefer to do this in person than virtual. But Jen's doing a great job, Kat's doing a great job, so we're glad to be all part of this event today here. So let me dive in and talk a little bit about Straight Up Solar and who we are. We were founded in 2006 by orthopedic surgeon Dr. Dane Glick, and while he was doing his residency in Western Kentucky, he was very concerned about the mountaintop removal that was going on in that community, how it was affecting not only the air quality, but also the jobs that were being done to pull the coal out of the land here and what that was doing to the whole community. So he vowed to take the notion of caring beyond his medical practice into the community when he became a doctor. Dane moved up here in St. Louis. When he got established, he decided to put solar energy on his house. And when he went to look for an installer in the phone book back in 2006, there actually were phone books, and he looked up and there was a blank line for solar installer. So Dane, being a pretty bright guy, looked up the what it took to be a solar installer and found the North American Board for Certified Clean Energy Professionals, which is the NABCEP certification I mentioned on this slide. He took the test, became a certified solar installer, put an array on his house. His neighbors thought that was pretty cool. He asked if could he put some arrays around the neighborhood, did a couple of houses here, a couple of houses there. Now, 14 years later, he's grown the company to 1,300 installations. We service communities in Bloomington, Illinois, with an office and service team up there, Southern Illinois in the Carbondale region, the Metro East, and in St. Louis. And we do residential and commercial installations here. We're really proud to have won 12 Midwest Renewable Energy Group I programs, including not only Grow Solar St. Louis, but also Grow Solar Metro East that is concurrently going on. So if you have any friends on the Metro East side, encourage them. There's a similar power hour structure, similar program, which I'll get into, so encourage them to go there. We're really proud to partner with people like the Missouri Botanical Gardens, Washington University, because our company and those organizations are aligned about creating a more sustainable world, a sustainable economy that all improves a healthy future for all of us here. And our mission is really to inspire a solar community to create a more sustainable world. So I hope whether you go solar or not, just by listening in here, you'll get excited about solar and spread the word about our company and about this program more specifically. Just a couple other things about our company. We are part of the Amicus Solar Cooperative, which means that we partner with about 50 like-minded solar companies all across the country, which allows us to group by our equipment and modules and share best practices. Combined, all the Amicus companies would be the third largest solar installer in the nation, so it allows us to give a better price to you all. We are also really proud to be a certified B Corporation, which means we're evaluated by a third-party organization to make sure we're putting people and planet before profitability. So I encourage you to look for the certified B Corporation label when you go shopping. We're really proud to join companies like Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, Method Soap, to really make sure that what we're doing is sustainable in the world going forward here. A little more specifics about our company. We're 75 employees with more than 25% having the NABCEP certification. So look for that NABCEP label when you're picking a solar installer. It was mentioned in the chat, but we also sell Tesla Powerwall battery backups. And we're really proud to sell REC premium modules, which allows us to have a 25-year warranty on the panels. And then we provide a 10-year workmanship and production warranty, and also a sunrise to sunset guarantee on the energy generation. And our project developer, Matt Farwick, who's with me, can get into more details of the warranties, either here in the question and answers, or when you meet him in person, virtually, I should say, meet him virtually in person, and he'll answer all those questions. Next slide, Jen. So let's get into the real details of why you're here. What are the costs of a solar system here? So let's talk about how the Group I program is structured here. We're really honored to have won the RFP. We were competitively selected in a request for proposal to be part of this program. And in doing so, we created a hypothetical house. That was that 7.2 kilowatt system that Jen mentioned the environmental benefits from. We kind of submitted a hypothetical house with a hypothetical base package of modules, inverters, and racking. But every house is different. So you might want a more higher efficiency panels. You might want to have an American-made panels versus a foreign-made panel. All those types of factors are called adders, and that customized solution is what Matt's going to design for your house, and that all adds into your base rate. So that adds about 20% to your base rate. Again, you might want to have multiple array on one part of the roof and then another array on another roof. So that's going to be maybe a different charge. Maybe you want to have a different type of inverter. So we have a base package, we have a lower price inverter, we have a higher price inverter. All these type of things add into your final price. I just want to mention here, we do sell battery storage. So if you're interested, again, if a power outage, you can get that energy back into your house. Or we also do car charging stations for electric cars. So you take the Group I rate, you take the adders, you put them together, you get the final price. So, but the most exciting news is that we're part of the Group I program here, which means that there's a rebate. So in addition to having a lower base rate to start with, there's also a Group I rate, which means as more people install, the greater the rebate will come back to you as a final cost. So Jen, next slide, I'll explain how the rebate works. So as I mentioned earlier, there's two programs going on in the St. Louis metropolitan region, Grow Solar St. Louis on the Missouri side, Grow Solar Metro East on the Illinois side. But because we're one region, we're one bi-state region, we're merging the two programs together in the rebate program here. So last year, over 140 homes went solar on the Metro East side and on the St. Louis side. There was more than 1,000 kilowatts sold. So everybody in the program who installed last year received a 3% rebate. So the good news is we've already hit the first level. We've already sold 50 kilowatts just in our first month. A big cheer, everybody. And we're about halfway to the 1% mark already. I think we're about in the 70 to 80 kilowatt level here of sold. So we're well on our way to start marching down this chart here. So get the word out to your friends, your neighbors, and we'll hit that 4% mark on the rebate program. So that's the unique aspect of this special Grow Solar St. Louis Group I program. So last year, the program had a range of prices that were sold, all the way from a very small array under 4 kilowatts at $10,000, all the way to bigger arrays that are 10 plus kilowatts that are $40,000. And these are just kind of pictures that kind of show you a small kind of South St. Louis home. You know, that's an under 4 kilowatt system, maybe a more suburban home in West St. Louis County or St. Charles County. That might be more like $40,000 here. I'm going to get into the incentives in the next couple slides here, but the key points are you have your final price, but you're going to see that there's tax credits. There's a federal tax credit, and then there's a state rebate that's going to knock off about 25 to 30% of the cost. So you're going to have to think about your net cost after incentives. So in this case, it could range from $6,600 all the way to $28,000. So that $10,000 turns into $6,600. And then we also offer financing options, which I'll get into more detail, that could finance this working within your energy bill. You might be able to afford an array for maybe $40, $50 more a month. You can get a whole array and really control your energy costs. So that's the range of prices on a typical solar system. Next slide, please, Jen. So let's get into the incentives. So by being all Americans, we're all eligible for the federal investment tax credit, which is 26% of the cost of a solar PV system, and that's available on the qualified expenditures in 2020. That means that includes the labor costs, the system installation, the interconnection wiring. And what Straight Up Solar does and what Matt does as a project developer, we're all inclusive. We're a turnkey developer. Our project costs are all inclusive. You're gonna get one number from us, and that number can be used as the basis for that investment tax credit here. I just also want to mention that it does not include the price of a new roof unless the roof reinforcement is necessary to support the solar panels. But for most residential cases, that's not applicable. So again, it's just a labor cost, system installation, the interconnection wiring. The credit is 26% for this year. It drops down to 22% in 2021. And then on December 31st, when that ball drops in Times Square, when 2022 comes in, it's zero. So this is really the opportunity here when you start talking about the Grow Solar program and the investment tax credits to really start thinking about solar. The key points about the tax credit, if there's no maximum to it, but you have to have a tax appetite, which means a dollar for dollar reduction off your taxes. You can carry it over to future years, but it's not refundable. So you have to have some type of tax liability to offset that. And again, the home must be owned by the taxpayer, does not have to serve as your principal residence. So it could be your summer home in Florida or Lake of the Ozarks or a rental home here in St. Louis. You're still eligible for that tax credit. But most importantly, I'm not a tax professional. Matt's not a tax professional. Jen's not a tax professional unless you got an accounting degree in the last week. And so check your tax call your tax professional, make sure you know how it affects your tax liability before you go over with this tax credit here. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about the state incentives. So because we live in the Ameren Missouri territory, and this only applies to Ameren Missouri, does not apply to co-ops like Kirkwood Co-op or the Quiver River. And again, our project developer, we have knowledge of each individual co-op in our region here. But this is, I'm just talking about people who have Ameren Missouri on their bill. Because they're an investor-owned utility, everyone gets a 25-cent a watt rebate, or that's $250 per kilowatt. For the average home, that's probably $1,500 to $2,500 rebate back from Ameren. It goes up to residential customers up to 25 kilowatts. It also can apply to commercial or industrial customers up to 150 kilowatts. So if you're a business, you're also eligible for the 25-cent a watt rebate. And I want to pause here, mention that there is a special group buy business program that's going on in the St. Louis region. It's called Renew STL Solar. It's run by Renew Missouri. I encourage you to look them up on the website. Again, that's Renew STL Solar. I took a peek on the participant list. I know Andrew Linares and Tori Cheatham from Renew Missouri are on the line. So if you had a question about the program, maybe they could jump in and answer on the chat here. But again, check out Renew Missouri's program. Again, it's called Renew STL Solar. The same program with a low group buy rate and then a rebate as more people sign in. And then finally, we talked a lot about net metering. Doesn't really matter for residential customers, but the cap is 100 kilowatts for that net metering, that trading back and forth of credits here. So again, you got your federal tax credit at 26%. You got your Ameren rebate at 25 cents a watt. Both of them are time limited. So you kind of want to start thinking about going solar in the next year or two. Next slide, Jen. So let's put it all together. I talked about how the program works in terms of the base rate, which we applied for, the adders, that becomes your total cost. Then the way the tax credit works, we get the Ameren rebate on the size of your system. Again, the 7.2 kilowatt system, multiplied by 25 cents, you get $1,800. That amount, because it's considered a coupon by the federal government, is subtracted by the total cost, and that's how they calculate the federal tax credit. So that's 26% of that total number minus the rebate. Then again, we're going to hit that 4% mark for our rebate. You're going to get a max group buy check. That will probably take, that occurs after the final installation of the program. So typically that's a year after the program ends. So there's a bit of a delay. I think the Ameren rebate comes probably within 2 months of when you install. So anyways, then you get a net cost, and that's really, you can kind of figure out what your net energy value is by determining your net cost by your power generation. So that's how it works. Base cost plus the adders, your final cost, minus the rebates, times the federal tax credit and the rebate savings. So again, this is just a hypothetical example, but I hope you understand kind of how all the math all works. Next slide, please. So let's talk about financing. Obviously, I know you guys have been storing some money under your mattress for going for a solar array, and you could obviously talk to your friends and neighbors to loan you money, go to your bank, They have home equity line of credits. But I really wanted to mention that Straight Up Solar, as part of this Amicus cooperative that I mentioned earlier, founded the Clean Energy Credit Union. This is a really special credit union. It's located in Boulder, Colorado. It's a virtual credit union. They do loans all across the country, just on electric cars charging stations, geothermal, electric cars, and solar arrays. And our company is integrated with the Clean Energy Credit Union, which allows us to provide a loan. It's a combo loan. A first loan is the same as cash loan for 26% of system cost that covers the federal tax credit. And then a 12-year fixed rate loan to cover the remaining 74% of the solar electricity cost. We have a 12-year loan at about 3% interest. We have a 15-year loan at 4% interest. So again, our project developer, Matt, can work with you if you're interested in financing. It's integrated into the cost of the array, and a great way to kind of leverage the value of a solar system on your house. I also wanted to mention a unique program eligible for people who live in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, or St. Charles County. It's called PACE financing. It's backed by the Y Green Energy Fund. This allows you to extend a loan out to 20 years to purchase a solar array. And the way PACE works, it stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing. That's what PACE stands for. And it's a voluntary tax assessment that's placed on your property. So you pay it with your property bill. The cost of array then is spread out over 20 years to pay through your property taxes. You have the option then to transfer that assessment to the next owner as part of your property tax. So that gives you, again, a lot of financial flexibility. Each St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, they have different names for these PACE financing. So just search Y Green Financing, put in your zip code, and you'll get the right program for you. And we'd be happy to put you in touch with Y Green for that PACE financing. So that's financing options here. So let's tell you, how do you get started here? So basically, we really appreciate your time being part of this webinar and getting educated about solar. Interested in going forward, we have a link through the chat here to get you directly to set up an appointment with Matt Farwig and get a specific quote. But we'll ask you for specific information like where's your address, what's your last 12 months of energy bill, just to kind of see what's the feasibility of solar. I live in a pretty shady area, so right off the bat, they can kind of look at my house and say it's not going to work. But it looks like it's working. We'll sit you down with Matt, and we do everything virtually. I should say that way. He'll sit you down via Zoom call and go through kind of the proposal, and he has a special program called Helioscope. Well, he'll do a customized system layout for your house, really see what the panels will look like, what the energy generation is. If that looks right for you, it looks like a good deal, we'll sign you up, get you signed on a contract, and then we'll move you over to steps 3 through 5 and get you into our project management system. Again, we handle all the engineering design. We handle the permitting. We'll work you through, if it's a public hearing, we'll make sure we have all the paperwork for you. We'll even come if you need it to testify in front of the Architectural Review Board or whatever city government you need. We also handle the rebate package for Ameren for you and make sure you have all the documentation for your federal tax credit application. Then we'll install and energize. Again, our crew, we're really proud of our crew that is NABCEP certified. All they do is solar. That's all they do. We have an electrician, that's all they do is solar. So they're very specialized, they're highly trained. We can do some of these systems we can do in one day, and we can probably get you done, installed in a day. Ameren maybe comes out a month later, we'll get that bi-directional meter. You could be up and running before the summer's over, the way our queue is going. Then step 5, you're really happy, you're energized, you're part of our solar community, you're gathering the sun, and you're a happy customer, and you're living a more sustainable life. So with that, Jen, thank you for the opportunity. Let us talk about the Straight Up Solar process and all the incentives to go solar here. And Matt and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Eric. That was super helpful. So I want to close up by reminding you about some really important key information. First, if you want to participate in this program, you have to sign a contract by August 31st to get the group buy rate. Again, the more people who sign up, the cheaper it is for everybody. I also want to remind you that on Energy Efficiency Day, that energy efficiency is a really smart way to start reducing your energy bills right now. And the last thing I want to remind you about is that you can and should sign up for your free site assessment from Straight Up Solar today. Now, here's some more contact information. I really hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you did, please tell your friends. Even if you didn't, tell your friends. Because like I said before, the more people that sign up, the more people get this great discounted group rate, and the more people have solar in our region, and that's just good for everyone. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We'll also have some time here in just a second to take some time to go over some of the questions that y'all have dropped in there together as a group.
And I just wanted to say thank you again to everybody for coming to our Grow Solar Power Hour, and a special thanks to our Green Living Festival sponsors, Ameren Missouri. So thank you, everybody, and please let us know what questions you have.
Yeah, so thank you. The questions are continuing to come in, and we had a lot of really good ones come in during the presentation. And we just realized that you maybe didn't see as an attendee the questions as they rolled in initially, but you saw our responses. So this is exactly why we're going to take this opportunity to revisit all those questions, and there's some really good ones. So keep them coming in. We're going to keep them coming in the chat. We might not be responding to them in the chat. We'll respond to them verbally, and we'll get through them because there's some really good ones, as I said. So without further ado, one person, John, has asked, what if I want to add batteries to store power that I produce to have some energy stored in case of an outage? So a couple battery questions. So let's chat about those for a minute, Matt.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for all the questions, everybody. So yeah, we offer 3 different types of batteries, or 3 different brands of batteries, I should say. There's one called the LG Chem. There's another one called Enphase. And then the third type that you've likely heard of is the Tesla Powerwall. And that is by far and away our highest selling battery for several reasons. One, you get the most efficiency out of it compared to the other 2. And it's also at a much lower cost per kilowatt hour that it'll store. So I believe one of the questions was on its storage capabilities. So one battery will hold 13.5 kilowatt hours. And then of course, then it kind of depends on how you use your power. So in most cases, when we only install one battery, what we're going to do is peel off critical loads to your home. So that may be your deep freeze, your refrigerator, maybe your stove, and one room of your home. We isolate those circuits, and then we back that up with the battery. Really what we try to shoot for is what we call the whole home backup. And that's going to vary per home, of course, and how big your home is and how much power you use. But basically, in most cases, it's 3 to 4 batteries. And then what we do is just tie those batteries directly into your electric panel. And then anything that's running through your electric panel, loads or things being consumed at your home, that's going to be backed up by those batteries.
Great. Yeah, I was just looking back through the questions to see if there are any more battery specific ones, but I think you kind of covered it. Let's see. Okay, let's move on to talking about kind of this net metering and Ameren buying back power versus how much they sell it for. So what's the rate? I think you know that off the top of your head, and walk us through that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So for Ameren Missouri, for the folks that are in that territory, basically they charge us 2 different rates throughout the year. There's a summer rate, which is higher, I believe around 12 cents a kilowatt hour, and then the winter rate, which is around 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So what happens is when you send that excess power back to the grid, they're going to track that, give you that credit. And then if you use that credit within the same billing cycle, so say, that same night or even a couple nights later when the sun's down and you're drawing a lot of power, you're going to get paid back that credit at its full value. So like, for instance, I think we're still in winter rates right now, but if I sent them a kilowatt hour today, they're going to give me a 10-cent credit. And then tonight when I use that credit, they're going to credit me back 10 cents a kilowatt hour. What happens at the end of the month is they basically cut it off and they say, okay, your credits are stopped for this month. They'll pay you on the following month, but it's at that wholesale rate. And for the winter months, because they're charging you less, they of course pay you less. It's 2.9 cents per kilowatt hour they pay you. And in the summer, it's 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour they pay you on your excess that you carry over month to month. So what we try and do is we always ideally size the system to where your solar is producing, tracking with your summer month usage. What we don't want to do is design a big system that's going to way overproduce, because as basically you're not going to get full credit for it for those months you overproduce. A few months of overproduction at a small rate's not bad, but we always customize it to your usage to make sure that you're going to get the most credit for the solar that you're installing.
Cool. All right, let's shift gears and talk about just roofs in general. So we had a couple questions in there about, well, first, I'm gonna give them to you in a clump. Can you install on a flat roof? That's question number one. Can you install on a metal roof? That's question number two. Let's start there.
Yeah, and the simple answer on both those is yes. So I think it's just off my own guess would be about 40 to 50% of our jobs sold in St. Louis City are on flat roofs, on TPO, or in some cases the old school tar roofs. What we do in that case is we don't actually drill into your roof like we would on an angled asphalt shingled roof. What we do is we use what's called a ballasted system. The product's called EcoFoot, and basically we lay down trays on your flat roof, and then we put the panels on those, bolt the panels to the trays, and then hold the trays down with cinder blocks. The big advantage there is there's no penetrations. So, you know, TPO can be sensitive. There's nothing actually drilling into your roof on a flat roof. And we definitely do them on metal roofs as well. In that case, we use a clamping system. So again, instead of drilling directly into your roof joist, we find, you know, those raised overlays basically, and we clamp onto those. And that is fairly common as well. Typically, as we get into more rural areas where we see more metal roofs. And then I believe there was one question about hail. I think I interpreted it as our metal roof's good for hail, and then I read it again. I believe the participant meant more the panels. So the panels are rated for 1-inch diameter hail up to 50 miles per hour. Anything over that would fall under your homeowner's insurance. So it's always important to talk with your homeowner's insurance before installing solar, just to make sure that they'll cover it, that they won't skyrocket your rates. Very rarely has that been an issue, but it's definitely something important, you know, worth checking with before you install.
And then I think the other roofing question that I missed was when should you re-roof? If you're going to be re-roofing in about 5 years, should you do that first, or should you get solar, and kind of why?
Yeah. So yeah, when you're that close, you know, you definitely want to go solar, which we would advise for two reasons: the Ameren rebate that's available right now, and the higher value tax credit. So in 5 years, the way things stand right now, for sure the federal tax credit's going to go away, and potentially the Ameren rebate may, you know, be out of money as well. So definitely still a good time to do it. If you're that close, yeah, we would definitely recommend getting your roof replaced first, because what happens is if we install the solar, then in 5 years you need that roof replaced. We have to come out and essentially disassemble everything that's on the roof, have the roofers come in and install the new roof, excuse me, and then come back and reinstall the system. And that's out of pocket unless, of course, it's an insurance claim. But that can get, you know, typically, depending on how big your system is, at least $3,000, you know, sometimes up to $5,000 or $6,000 out of pocket for that process. So yeah, if it's that close, definitely would recommend getting it replaced first.
Actually, I lied. There's one more roof question, interesting one. So someone asked about the Tesla solar roofs, and maybe you could explain what they are if folks don't know what they are.
Yeah, so it's a very cool product. So basically what it is, instead of having roof shingles or clay tile roof, you know, whatever your material is, the solar panels, I don't know the exact dimensions, but they're, say, roughly 8 inches by 8 inches. And the solar panels actually become your roof tile. And then, of course, you cover your whole roof in them. And then that, you know, adds the protection of a normal roof, and then also the benefit of them generating solar electricity. Very cool product, and we are a certified Tesla installer. So, you know, I feel like we're kind of up on the industry as far as what's available. We've heard nothing of those becoming available anytime soon. So the last I've heard, they've done some out in California, more like trial studies, but, you know, probably at least, I think I mentioned, you know, 5 years for sure before anything like that might be available here in the Midwest. Unfortunately, we're kind of the last to get the, you know, expansive technology like that. But definitely a cool product though, for sure.
Yeah, and my anecdotal opinion, or what I've heard about them, is that they're nice, but if one of them goes down, say you do have a little bit of hail and one of them gets damaged, then it's a little bit harder. It's kind of like a whack-a-mole trying to find which panel is out. How much that would impact the overall generation, but it's definitely a cool technology and concept as we're kind of rethinking our roofs and how we use them. So thank you for explaining that. And I hope the technology continues to advance and we get to see more stuff like that in the future. Okay, we had a few more questions come in, so I want to make sure that we answer all of them. Oh, one person did ask about kind of like annual maintenance for arrays. What kind of maintenance is involved? Do you have to do anything? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So on most residential, I should say all residential systems, pretty much anything under 30 kW. And when you get into that size, it's almost always commercial. There really is no maintenance. It's a solid state system, so there's no moving parts. Your warranties on the panels are going to be 25 years. I believe one gentleman asked about cleaning. So they're always on a tilt, so nature really acts as the cleaning agent. So rain, snow, that kind of thing is going to actually help wash away a lot of the debris or the soiling that may wind up on the panels. Basically there's nothing you have to do. When we get into the really big size systems, that 30 kW and above size, we do offer O&M agreements, basically operation and maintenance agreements, to where we do come in and do annual checks. And the only reason for that is those are typically powering, a school or a major farm operation, that kind of thing, typically in high dust environments. In that case, we do offer, O&M agreements. But yeah, for most, or I should say all residential systems, there's no maintenance required on behalf of, the homeowner.
Great. All right, I think after reviewing the questions, I think there's just one more that we haven't really touched on yet. So I want to give folks one last opportunity. If you have any questions that you've thought of, drop them in the chat. But if not, we'll start to wrap it up. So the last question or area that we haven't revisited was a question on the federal tax credit and the tax deduction. The question was, so does the tax deduction, is it 26% of the entire cost, or is it a straight credit, i.e. $20,000 of the install cost equals about $5,200 off the federal tax bill, or is it a deduction? So kind of walk us through that if you could.
Yeah, very good question. So yeah, it is based off the total system cost. So whatever it costs for solar, if you add batteries, those are included as well in that federal tax credit. Just something to be aware of. If you add batteries later on by themselves, they're not eligible for that because the credit is tied specifically to solar. But the IRS views that as if you need more work done or completed to install solar, then that goes into that cost and that's eligible for that tax credit. And yeah, so whatever your total system cost is, it's 26% of that amount. And something I always advise clients to do is double check with your tax professional to make sure you're going to be eligible for that. I've only had, I believe it was 2 cases where a client wasn't eligible for it in that first year. And the reason was they were retired, didn't have a ton of income. They weren't paying a lot of taxes, so they weren't eligible for that credit. But I did have them tell me, and I can't say this is for sure, because of course we're not tax professionals, but in both those cases, they were able to carry that credit forward. So they couldn't get it all in that first year, but they were, able to get it the following year. So, yeah, that 26% is on the total sale amount. And then there was one more question on the Ameren rebate, kind of going along with that. So yeah, that's at 25 cents per watt. So if you've got a 10,000 watt system, you're going to get back $2,500 from Ameren. And they're actually really awesome about paying that out. Typically comes about 4 to 6 weeks after your system's turned on. And that's a check from Ameren straight to you as their client, basically. Yeah, and that's the 2 big incentives, that are available for this year.
Cool. And so one question that wasn't asked, but I think that what comes up a lot is the rebates for the program, the Grow Solar program itself. So I just want to reiterate that it really doesn't matter if you sign up, if you're like one of the first to sign up, or you wait and think about it and sign up at the end. That's it comes in the form of a rebate check. That's how you guys do it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it comes directly from Straight Up Solar at probably about a quarter, 90 days after the last install. So for instance, the 2019 people just received their rebate check. So there's a lag on that. But again, whether you're the first or the last, if we hit that 1,500 kilowatt system, you get the 4% rebate. Again, last year we did 3%, and we hope to be on the same pace this year.
Yeah, as
And,
we
Marta-
said, we've already hit that, our first 50 kilowatt goal and climbing. So, and we're only about a month into the program, so we're going to keep it up. Okay, we've got a few more questions rolled in, and there are a couple more good ones. Chuck asks or says, all solar panels become less efficient over time. That's a great point. So what is the life expectancy of these panels in Missouri's sunlight?
Yeah, so all panels that Straight Up Solar installs come with a 25-year warranty, and that's both on electrical production and product warranty. So electrical production means that they're actually going to produce power for 25 years, and then the workmanship covers more of the aesthetics, like if the frame were to crack, that kind of thing. So you're guaranteed to produce power for 25 years. There is what they call a degradation rate, or that's a fancy way of saying they do slowly wear down over time. So our most common brand is a brand called REC that we install. They have a degradation rate of 0.5% per year. So it's still, very slow. And then what that equates to is at year 25, they're still going to produce 86% of the power that they did on day one. So yeah, very good question. There is a slow production slowdown rate. But yeah, you're still getting, only 14% less power as you were on day one at year 25. And I do see the question here, Mart, about off-grid systems. I can go and grab that. We as a company have done them. I personally have never done them myself. Off-grid systems are substantially more complex. We have to do an energy analysis of, what each appliance or essentially everything in your home consumes, and then size your solar system to that. And then, of course, we've never, to my knowledge, never done generator. We have done the battery systems, but it's something we have the capability of doing. It's just a much more detailed process than a typical grid-tied system because of the deep, thorough analysis we have to do on your home.
Great. All right. Well, I think that exhausts all of our questions, and we're at the top of the hour. So I'm going to wrap it up. But thank you for all these great questions. We really always enjoy having a nice, robust discussion. We had a good one today. So as I said before, look out in your email for the follow-up email that I'm about to send out momentarily with those links and contact information to sign up for a site assessment with Matt and Straight Up Solar, and then all of this other supplemental information that we threw in the chat that you might have missed will also be in there. And then you'll also continue to get program updates and hear about when we hit our benchmarks. So look out for those. And again, thank you, Jen and Kat, the Green Living Festival for having us, and to Eric and Matt at Straight Up Solar for sharing all of your wisdom. We appreciate having you all here today. So thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.